Hello out there in podcast land, and welcome to the very first episode of And So the Mind Reels. In this episode, we're going to talk about ideas. When you create, you need to know how to do it. You need an idea. Now, when I started out as a novice writer, I asked a lot of questions and read a lot of books. I wanted to know if I was doing it right. This episode explores the methods, the early stages of the creative process, and some questions that writers may wonder, such as, what's the best time of day to write? What should you use, a pencil, a pen, a computer? And where do you get your ideas? My name is Lee Mueller, and this is the Mind Reels podcast. Now, I thought I'd start at the very beginning of the creative process, whether it had to do with writing or playwriting or any type of writing or any type of creativity, and go to the very fundamental, basic, atomic part of that process, and that is the idea. The idea is where most of these things germinate or start. So you want to write a book, you want to write a short story, you want to write a play, you want to write an opera, a ballet, something, but you're not really sure how to go about it. Well, okay, there are, endless how-to books that you can order, you can download. There's some great college courses that you could take, extensions type of things, adult education that are just geared to how to be a creative person, how to write a short story. You can investigate those, and those are great, things to get you on track. In some of these books and some of these classes, they might, have you just come in, sit down, take a piece of paper, a pen, and just start writing. Others might have you do a detailed outline, a character sketch, kind of an arc, a character arc. Maybe they want to introduce the three-act formula into your plot, and this is how you need to do, and this is where your plot goes up, and this is your there's countless methods that can be taught and things that you can learn from this. But before you get into any of those things, the best thing that you can have right away is an idea. What is the big idea? Well, now, for example, to come up with this podcast, I had to have an idea. And the idea was about ideas. Now, my background, I write murder mystery plays. And many times after the play, after the production's over, people will come up to me and they say, hey, where do you get your ideas? How did you come up with that? That was wacky. Every time I hear those questions, I try to provide an easy answer. But the truth is, I really don't know how to explain in an easy way, in the simplest terms, where these ideas come from. How an idea that I had became a story or became a play. But to explain the whole process of where these ideas come from, how they pop into my head, where they came from, how they get transformed into words, and those words end up on paper, and that paper becomes a play, and people act it out in front of a public, that could take a while. Now, over the years, the more I heard the question about where do you get your ideas, the more I was forced to actually think about it. I was forced to think about the where, the why, and the how. Now, I thought about where I get ideas and the how I get ideas, and the deeper I thought about it, I realized there's probably an infinite number of answers, just as there's an infinite number of how-to books and classes and blogs and articles written to teach you how to be creative and how to get ideas. Now, as a side note, I also noticed that these same people who would come up to me and ask me where I got my ideas would inevitably go on to tell me about an idea they had for a story or a play. So it was clear that they were able to get ideas much in the same way I did. So this where question many times really was just an icebreaker that led further down the rabbit hole that invited them to ask further questions about other things. Technical questions like, Well, do you write in the morning or the evening? Do you use a pencil or a pen, or do you write on paper, or do you use a computer? Now, if you use a pencil, is it a number 2 pencil? If you use a pen, do you use black ink or blue ink, or what kind of pen have you used? Or if you use a computer, what software? Are you a Mac guy? Are you a PC guy? Which one is the best? I believe that every person that starts out wanting to write is eager to know how other writers write. Now, I confess that I asked those same questions and read many books on this creative writing process. Now, essentially, novice writers who are just starting out want to know if they're doing it right. It doesn't hurt to ask or read as much as you can, but I can tell you, after asking all of the usual questions and reading most of the usual books on it, beginning writers will uncover this nugget of wisdom, and the wisdom is there is no right way. The bottom line is you simply need to try different methods until you find the one that you're most comfortable. Now, example, me, talking about me, I found that writing early in the morning was the best time for me. Maybe it won't be for you, but it was for me. The reason it is my brain in the morning was not overloaded with all the crap of the day. My thoughts were just waking up, and they were still kind of hovering in a dreamlike state and kind of like in a daydream. I'm not thinking about what a lousy day I had already, or the rude guy that cut me off on the highway, or I need to call and find out why my cell phone bill went up. I found that when my mind has been active all day, I didn't feel very creative. Writing to me was very much like daydreaming. And early in the morning, I found it was much easier to daydream. Now, with that being stated, maybe the end of the day works for other people. Maybe all the events of the day provide a catalyst for the creative process and you have a million ideas by then. Just find a time that works for you. One of the interesting things I read is that Marcel Proust, who was a famous writer, you can look him up, he had a padded, soundproof room that he would lock himself away in to write. He, of course, had issues with outside interference and noise and people and sounds. He needed quiet time to remember all things past. Now, on the flip side, I once read, I don't know if this is true, but I once read that Charles Dickens was the complete opposite. If there was a dinner party going on at his home, he would simply just bring out his writing table into the room and continue working while he socialized. Two great writers, two completely separate styles. Again, there is no right way. Now, technical side for me, what did I do? Well, in the beginning, I wrote things down in a notebook. Most of the time I was in class, should have been paying attention, had my notebook, I would be jotting down story ideas and little plays and little scenes. I moved on to use a typewriter. When I took typing in high school, I learned how to type. I switched over because it looked cool. I looked like Hemingway or somebody typing, sitting there at the typewriter. So I started using that. Then evolution came with technology and I started using a word processor. Now I use a computer to write most of the time. I don't have a particular brand of software that I endorse or that I used. I started out just using like Word, and I've used OpenOffice, and lately I've been using a program called Scrivener. It doesn't really matter, just as long as it's something that you're comfortable with. These were the writing habits that I developed and that I became comfortable with. Whatever method you develop, that will become your habit. Then the possibilities are endless. However, the basic stories you can come up with are not endless, only the way you tell them. Okay, what do you mean by that? Okay. As far as stories and ideas for plays, it's been proposed that there's a limited number of plots or formulas that a writer has to choose from. I think it's 7 was the last count. They may have subtracted or added to that. Basic plot structures. Now, every book, play, movie is just really a variation of those same basic plot structures. As an example, a murder mystery, which I am known for. I can boil it down to the most basic fundamental plot structure, and it's this. Someone gets murdered, someone figures it out. Boom, you're done. Pretty straightforward. That's it. I just happen to come up with variations on that theme, and I do pretty well. Now, other genres, such as like romance, rom-coms, has your standard boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. You can do the variation of that. Boy meets girl, girl loses boy, girl gets boy back. And then there's the hero's journey, where a common person is suddenly thrust into some type of adventure where he or she has to travel some great distance over land and sea, even overcome obstacles and solve problems or defeat a force such as evil. You know, most fantasy adventure books and movies use the hero's journey at its core, like Star Wars, for example, Lord of the Rings, Rambo. You name it, you can. Once you become familiar with these, you'll recognize them right away. So when someone says, where do you get your ideas? It's pretty safe to say, I get them from the formulas that are already out there. The trick is taking those ideas and creating a variation, one that's so unique that people don't recognize it right away. That's the trick. An idea in its essence, a method to reinvent a story that's already been told. It's like taking a cliche and wording it so that it sounds brand new at first. You can bring your horse over here to the creek, but if he's not very thirsty, odds are he'll just look at the water and, probably not partake. So you see what I did there? I took an old cliche with some extra bits and redid it so it didn't sound familiar to you at first. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Writers do that all the time. Now, in our next episode, we'll explore the same subject further, and I'll show you how things you recognize, standard cliches, can be restructured, reworded, recostumed until you don't recognize it and it seems original, but deep down, it really is. Thank you for listening. Until next time, there'll be something.